The Secrets of Technology is brought to you by the StarQuest Production Network and is made possible by our many generous patrons. If you'd like to support the podcast, please visit sqpn.com/give. You're listening to The Secrets of Technology. Hi, I'm Dom Bettinelli, and you're listening to The Secrets of Technology, where we discuss the technology news that's important to you from a uniquely Catholic point of view. And joining me today on the panel are Thomas Sanjurjo. Hey, Thomas.
Hey, Dom.
And Jack Baruzzini. Hey, Jack.
Hey, Dom.
Folks, before we get into today's show, I want to tell you about another show on the StarQuest Network you are sure to enjoy called The Secrets of Star Trek. And right now is a great time to be listening to The Secrets of Star Trek because there's some great Star Trek out there. Star Trek Picard season 3 is wrapping up even as the show releases. Star Trek Strange New Worlds is just around the corner, and they both look awesome. And they just announced Star Trek Section 31 with Michelle Yeoh. So there's some great Star Trek coming. And, of course, we're still talking about classic Trek. So check that out wherever you can find fine podcasts or at sqpn.com/Star Trek. So I want to get right into today's topic, which is kind of personal to me because this is something that occurred to me recently with my family. Now, if you're a techie like me, you're probably the one person in your family who takes care of everyone's tech issues. Whether it's like you have a spouse and children, or you have siblings and your parents, or whatever it is. If you're listening to a tech podcast, chances are you're that person, that guy or gal. And I would assume this is true for you guys, right?
Yes, for the whole family and extended family.
Yeah, okay. So one of the things that occurred to me recently is because I've got 5 kids, I got my wife, and all the kids have Kindles, and some of them have laptops or desktop computers or the phones or iPads, and keeping up with hey, there's an update out, don't forget to do the update. Oh, why is my thing not working? Oh, and it just became such a hassle. I said, you know what? I need to systemize this. Being the good techie that I am, I said we need a system and a process. So I decided that every so often, it could be monthly, it could be quarterly, I schedule a day, like a Saturday, where I will have each family member come to me and sit down with me with all of their electronics to check the hardware and software and see if there are any issues that need to be dealt with, any questions that they've had crop up, or anything like that. Sort of like The Godfather. You've come to me on the day of my son's wedding, that sort of thing. So bring all your stuff.
Gonna make you an offer you can't refuse.
Yeah,
that's the other one. You get a line.
Yeah, I'm gonna make you an upgrade. Gonna make you an upgrade you cannot refuse. So I made a list of all the different things that I felt like we needed to go through. And you could, follow along with what I do or adapt this to your situation. Everyone's situation is going to be different. But for my family, this was the situation. And so in my house, we have iPhones. We're an Apple household. So we have iPhones, iPads, Kindles, and some laptops and desktop computers, a few of those. I have, of course, I take care of my own stuff, so this isn't part of it. But my wife's got a laptop, a MacBook. My daughter has a Mac Mini, and that sort of thing. And then that's my oldest daughter. And the other kids mostly have iPads or old iPhones without cell service that they use for audiobooks and things like that. So one of the first things I do is I double check the emergency contact info. Now on iOS, on the iPhone, there's a health app, and in the health app there is a section where you can look at your profile, and that's it's got your face on it, and then this like health ID, health details, medical ID, health checklist, there's various things like that. Now under health details, that's where you have your basic, what's your blood type, how old are you, that sort of thing. Under medical ID, that's where you would have the emergency medical information that an EMT or a doctor could access even if your phone is locked. And that's where you'd have medications and medical conditions. Under medical notes, I actually put, I'm a Catholic, please contact a Catholic priest. That's something you might think about doing for yourself. and as well as the emergency contacts. So I have, for myself, I have my wife, I have my brothers. For the kids, it's me and my wife and their grandmother. I put my mother-in-law in there because she's further away, and God forbid something would happen to both me and my wife, she's likely to be the one who would deal with these things. So in any, whoever you choose, you can choose several people. So you want to check the blood type, any ongoing health conditions, allergies. Those are big ones. Make sure that they're in there. So I would assume there's something similar on Android where you can have a medical ID.
So on Android, it's basically the same thing. It's if you go to settings and then go to safety and emergency, that's where you put all that same information in. It's got the emergency contacts and the medical information and all that in one place.
Cool. All right.
Yeah, and it's very similar. And there's also a personal safety app that I learned about recently, and you can add that. My dad has it on his on one of his devices because it's in the case of an emergency, it will automatically text someone. So if it detects a collision or something like that, it'll contact one of the emergency contacts, and it'll just send a text message ping to make sure that they know something's going on.
That's a good point. The Apple Watch has the same thing with the crash detection or fall detection, that it will contact the emergency contact if it detects something and you don't respond. Like if you fall and you don't respond right away, it will call them and emergency services. So yeah, make sure that stuff is up to date for everyone. Like next time you go to, it's Easter, Christmas, whatever, a barbecue, annoy all your family by going around saying, let me see your phone, make sure it's up to date, because this is critical. This is the sort of thing that could save a life. So definitely do this. I was listening to the Mac Geek Gab podcast, and one of the hosts of Pilot Pete was saying his mother-in-law lives down the street, and he got a ping, went to her house. She'd fallen in the garage and couldn't get up. And she was laying on concrete. If he hadn't got the ping from her Apple Watch, she might have been there all weekend and possibly could have died of hypothermia. So, it possibly saved her life. So that's very important stuff. So then another thing to do is if there's any type of tracking tech. So if you have Find My iPhone, make sure that's working. Make sure everything is entered correctly. If you're using other types of trackers like tile trackers. So I put a tile trackers on like my kids' Kindles or on their headphones, because I can't tell you how often they come to me saying, Dad, I don't know where my headphones are. They're in your bed. No, they're not. Let me use the tile and it will track it to your bed. And it did. So that's usually where it is. But so make sure that those are working and that the batteries are up to date. That's the big thing. Make sure you've checked the batteries. And that's something that I have to do on a regular basis, is open those apps up and look and see how's the batteries on all the various things I'm tracking. So that's the other thing. Does Android have a tracker like Find My? Does it have something like that?
They have something similar. It's not as robust, but they've been updating it over the years. I'm trying to remember what it's called. I can actually look on here real quick. Find Device, and it's similar, where you'll track like your Bluetooth earbuds, and I think you can add like a tile and different things like that into there. And it's pretty much the same thing, just for Android. Okay,
good. That's excellent. So one thing I've done, this is pretty Mac specific, but then there's probably a way to do this on other devices, is I've added an automation using Shortcuts, which is the built-in automation software on iPads, Macs, and iPhones. It's a low power notification. So what I've done is I've set it to say when the battery life on this device drops below. I usually set it to 15, although I'm thinking of moving it to 10, because you'd be not surprised maybe, how often kids let their phones go to below 15%. But anyway, when it gets really low, it will text me, Lucy's phone is nearly dead. Ben's phone is nearly dead. Because how often they come to me, Dad, my phone's missing and the battery's dead. Why did you let the battery get dead? And we've gone for a week without the device until we stumble on it, So this way it will text me, the phone's almost dead, so that I can say to them, plug in your phone. And then they won't lose it when its battery is dead.
10% is probably a better idea than 15 too, because 15, they normally get a warning on the device that says, hey, your battery's low. So, 10's like closer to actually dead. After
they've ignored the first warning. Yes. The second warning. Right.
Something that can help with that is they make those wireless charging pads that you can put like 3 or 4 devices on, getting one of those and just putting it in like a common area where people can park their phones. And I found that has helped to keep certain people who shall remain unnamed in my household to actually keep their phone charged.
Is that your toddler? Does she leave her phone uncharged?
Definitely.
I will say there also, if you get one of those chargers and it has the tiny little cables that you connect to it, buy a bulk of those, because you will feel wealthy when you can just replace them, since they have a tendency to escape with the device and go to some other room.
Yes. Yeah. My pick of the week is related to this. So there'll be something related to that.
So is mine.
Yeah. So some type of automation that alerts you as the tech person in your house, the tech dad or the tech mom, to the low power stuff, so that you can avert disaster, shall we say. Another great thing to do is verify that backups are happening. So iPhones, iPads, they all have an automatic backup to iCloud system that's available. And you just got to make sure it's on, that it's happened last night. They usually happen every night, sometime in the middle of the night. Make sure it's happening, that it's updating. It's hard to verify that the backup is a good backup from iPhones. Like there isn't a built-in system to say this is to check it and make sure it's good. But I don't think I've ever heard someone say, I've had a corrupted iCloud backup. For computers, for laptops or desktops, you can, presuming you're running backups software. So let's presume that in good faith that you have it backing up. You can run backup checksums or backup verification. I use Carbon Copy Cloner as my backup software of choice, and you can every once in a while tell it to check the backup. Is it good integrity and that sort of thing. So definitely check your backups, make sure they're happening, and make sure they're good.
And if storage is an issue here, this is one that I've taught my kids to do. We have a drive that's running on a RAID system on our network locally. And so I have them just continuously back up their documents folder to the documents folder on that. And that's what I'll check with them, is that they've got that running as a backup, because they don't necessarily need the whole laptop. I can recover the laptop. Yeah. But that documents folder is like their art or their writing that they've been doing, and they want to make sure that persists over a failure somehow.
That's a great point.
Right. And if you don't want to go to the trouble of setting up like your whole in-home backup solution, and obviously, again, presuming that you're going to have a offsite cloud backup, Dropbox is a really good solution for that. They've recently updated a lot of their tools so that they have like a whole section just for backing up computers. And I found that to be pretty useful.
Yes. Yeah. I actually have been using my network storage, my NAS, to back up my computers, and then those then back up into Amazon's Glacier cloud. So because 3-2-1 backup, but I should do that with the kids stuff now. Yeah, that's a good point. Thanks for reminding me. That's my next chore, is to start back, because you can also back up a Dropbox to the NAS. So that's a whole nother topic. I don't want to get into that right now, but it's a little bit involved. It's like intermediate level. So that's worth looking at too. Obviously you want to make sure their operating system is up to date, so on the iPhone or iPad, you go into system settings, general software update, make sure they have the latest updates, open up the App Store, go to the update section, pull down from the top. I don't know why, but when you open that up, it'll show like 6 apps need updating, and then you'll refresh and it'll say 47. Like, it's like, Apple, did you forget until now, or you hiding it from me? But anyway, I don't know what the mechanism you have to do that, but you do. And then update them all.
There's two levels of updates. So this is something I learned recently. It's actually something I learned from Steam too. What ends up happening is they have updates that need to run because there's some functional issue, and then they have timed updates that are like, this will be good to happen, but it's not going to be important until 3 months from now. So you can update it at any time. And so when you do that refresh, it hits all of them. It goes in and queries them all and says, do you have a new version? And then it'll pull those new versions, even if they're not necessary at the moment.
Oh, that's good to know. Okay. I didn't know that. That's excellent. So, I mean, there's no reason not to do that then and just update everything while you're at it. Good. So the next thing I do is I discuss security practices, best practices. Are you using your password manager? Do you remember your passcode for your password manager? Do you have a good passcode on your phone, iPad, computer? Remember, you never give it out. And then things like we've talked about before. If you get a text message, or if someone calls you and they ask you to give them the number that you're about to receive on your device, what do? You say no. You say no matter what. Like I emphasize to them, these best practices. And the one thing I do is I also make sure that we're using a good passcode on their phones. And the older they are, the better the password can be. Like my 10-year-old, her phone just has like Audible and Photos and Kindle app, that sort of thing on it. It's not a real phone. It's not being used as a phone. So, she's got a simple code that she can remember. But the 17-year-old, I make her create a good passcode, alphanumeric, so that no one can just try 10,000, things and break into it. So we talked about that. And one of the things that I'm going to add to this discussion is something my brother brought up, which is that he has a family code word that he and his wife and all his kids have. And if you've heard these stories about grandparents getting a phone call from their grandchild saying, I've been arrested and you need to send money, or I'm in trouble, and it's a scam. And it's not really their grandchild, and this whole thing. So what they've done is they've come up with this way of saying, whether it's a phone call or a text or an email, if there's any doubt, ask for the code word. And it's it's like a word that means something to everybody, but no one else would be able to guess it because you're not giving context. So like, if it was something related to an event in life, like, I'm trying to think of when you were 12 and your whole family went to a particular museum and there was a dinosaur named, Susan the T-Rex. What's the one in, I'm thinking of the Field Museum in Chicago. I was just reading an article about it. Anyway, just like say the Susie T-Rex. Okay. And so the code word is Susie T-Rex. Now that means something to everyone in the family, but it doesn't mean anything to anyone outside the family. And so you don't have to say, when we went to the museum, what was it we saw? You would say, what's the code word? So that person has no context by which to guess, and they get one guess, because if they get it wrong, it's not them.
They obviously don't know.
Yeah.
Right.
So that's something I'm going to start implementing with my kids, because it's a nice way to make sure, because especially with deep fake voices and all that other stuff that's cropping up now, that's that bit of knowledge unique to us. That is our last defense.
This is what Starfleet needs to implement based on the most recent season of Picard.
I know, if a changeling ever gets a hold of you, you don't have to give out those code words.
I would also say make sure that everyone has two-factor authentication turned on their accounts, because a lot of accounts you can ignore that, and that's something that we need to have on. Definitely.
And when possible, unfortunately not every site lets you do it, but when possible, use a third-party two-factor authenticator software as opposed to texting it to you. Please, right. Wish these companies would stop texting me these codes, because that's pointless. That's a huge security hole.
especially when everybody has an authenticator app and it's so easy to link to. I just really don't get that.
And my password manager has a built-in authenticator. So why not? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Anyway. The other thing I do is I review the parental control settings. So I look at it and see, is everything set appropriately for this child and their age? I have kids from 10 to 17. So they all have different settings and different needs. Over time, as they get older, we loosen things up for them, because I think I was saying to you before we started, I don't want my kids to go out into the world from a safe non-internet bubble into the world and exposed to the internet with no previous exposure. So it's like immersion therapy, just very easing them into the bigger internet. And so, are their settings appropriate for them at this point? Anything need to be changed? I mean, with my son today, we found out that screen time got turned off on his device. Now, I don't think it was him, because I know he's not that devious, and I don't think he knows his screen time passcode. I changed it anyway, but so if he did know it, he doesn't know it now. But I find screen time to be a little buggy and hard to use sometimes, and I wish Apple would make it better. But you want to look at it, make sure it's appropriate, make sure they're using things. And then I looked at what apps are installed. I looked through their photos. I looked through the hidden photos album. Do you know that Apple Photos has a hidden photos album? I looked through that. Yeah. Just for safety's sake, it's a prudent thing. And anything they shouldn't be taking, any photos they shouldn't have, the usual sort of thing. And then, and then, that takes maybe 25 minutes, a half hour at most with all of them. And we've gone through everything, and their stuff is all working by the time we're done with it. And we've had a conversation about their technology usage. And that's another important point.
Yeah, I think that's the really important point, is that the habit that it then instills in them the habit of keeping their tech up, making sure that they're watching what they're doing for themselves, and that they're being careful with their passwords, and that they're knowledgeable about what's important about them.
Right. And teaching them how to do this stuff when they're on their own, and also teaching other family members. Because I know for me, when someone brings me a piece of tech and they want help with it, I would much rather just fix it myself and be done with it. But if I actually educate them on how to do it themselves and how to be smart about it, it's going to pay dividends.
It's that darn fish thing, right?
Exactly.
Teach a man to upgrade his OS. He'll be upgrading his OS for a lifetime.
There you
go. Are there any other tools and concerns out there I talked mainly about iOS stuff, and we talked a little bit about Android and Windows. Any other tools and things specific to those other operating systems?
I got a couple for Android. This isn't going to be something you really have to worry about with iOS, but for Android, make sure that you're keeping up to speed on malware apps in the Android App Store, because they get through a lot more frequently than in the Apple Store. So just make sure you're up to date on that. Make sure you're keeping your security patches up to date on your phone. And they have like lists out there of what apps have been infected. So if you got any of those, uninstall those. And for Windows specifically, make sure that BitLocker is enabled on your Windows machines, and that you have the recovery key saved. Because if you encrypt your drive and don't save your BitLocker recovery key, then you're out of luck if you need to recover that drive.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So
actually, and there's nothing anybody can do.
Yes.
Yeah.
Mac OS also has a recovery key disk encryption. File Vault, it's called. So if you have File Vault saved, enabled on your Mac, make sure you save that recovery key. Hard copy somewhere in a fireproof cabinet of some sort. You do have a fireproof cabinet, right? Everyone should have a fireproof cabinet with the most important things in it. And that sort of thing goes in there. Your recovery information for your password manager, all that sort of stuff. That's a really good point.
And then one other one that I thought of, a lot of cars nowadays get software updates for various different things. Sometimes it's just the entertainment system, but sometimes it's something important like the brakes or the power steering. So make sure that you're checking your car, and if you have family members with cars like that, make sure that they're checking. A lot of times those will be over there updates, but sometimes it's something you have to take in, kind of like if you get a product recall. But some cars you have to take in, they plug in a USB stick and update your car. So make sure that that's included when you're checking all the devices.
That's a good point. Yeah. I mean, I'm used to the whole, the old, software, car recall things, getting those in the mail, but, it's worthwhile checking once in a while your car. It's just looking online and seeing if there's something for your car, your particular vehicles, including, your parents' vehicles, your kids' vehicles, folks, watch out for your parents, folks. That's the important thing. Yeah. They need your help with their tech. It's so disheartening to see how often older folks, their tech is not up to date. They're not, and they're not safe, and they end up getting scammed, or they just get in a bad way trying to use things, and they become, a lot of times for older folks who are housebound, their tech is their lifeline to, a social life, and then they get cut off because it's not working right. So yeah, double check them.
And the one last thing I want to mention here too is, like, if you don't know if you don't know about the family apps that are on the environments that you're working with, go learn them. Just take a little bit of time. There's a lot of really good information in them. So whether it be Google's family or Microsoft family apps, Microsoft family apps is actually really interesting because it'll tie into their Xbox account as well. And so you can have some control over how their Xbox account relates to things. And Amazon also has a whole parent control unit. So if they have a Kindle, there are some ways to lock down what they're able to access there, and it's actually pretty useful.
There are also third-party family device control apps, like parental control apps. One that I'm gonna start checking out I've heard about. It's called Bark. That looks pretty interesting. There was a Disney one, Disney Circle, I think, and some others like that. We'll do a show on those at some point once we get some more information. So they're third-party parental control apps that allow you they basically set up profiles on your devices like a company would for a company device. So, but it uses that same technology, but it restricts what the kids can do with their particular devices, and they might have better UIs and a little more granular control than the built-in stuff from Apple or Google or what have you. All right, cool. Excellent. So if you folks have any things that you do for Family Tech Day, or any ideas or any questions or concerns, be sure to let us know. You can email us at technology@sqpn.com, or join our Discord community and the Secrets of Technology channel there. You can find that at sqpn.com/discord. Not technology, Discord. Before we move on to our headlines, I'd like to take a moment to thank our patrons who make it possible for us to create the Secrets of Technology, including John W., SR, Joseph G., Francesca M., and JP. Their generous donations at sqpn.com/give make it possible for us to continue the Secrets of Technology and all the shows at StarQuest, and you can join them by visiting sqpn.com/give. So let's talk about some headlines. Here's a nice fun one up front. The FBI has tested facial recognition software on Americans for years. Now, this is according to some documents that have been obtained by the ACLU and shared with Gizmodo, the site that we're talking about here with this story. It basically says they've been working on a project that allowed them to develop unconstrained facial recognition. And the idea is most facial recognition software out there now requires a pretty good face-on, pretty clear shot in order to recognize the person. And this was, they would be able to take a shot of an entire crowd and identify the people in the crowd, often from hundreds of feet away, hundreds of meters, up to 1,000 meters away, that sort of thing. So it appears that the project called Janus, which is the two-faced Roman god,
I love that name.
Yes.
so accurate for this.
Two-Face. It appears the project has finished, but that doesn't mean that the technology is gone. It could be another project going on as we speak. So, what do you guys think of this? Is this pretty scary? What do we do about facial recognition? Is it a useful tool for law enforcement and keeping us safe, or is it an invasion of our privacy? What do you think?
I think it's very bad and entirely unsurprising. I feel like I've read articles about this already, so I'm kind of getting deja vu. I would be interested to see how successful it actually was with identifying people like from the side at 100 yards. Like, just besides the whole issue of the morality, I'd want to know how effective it actually is. Like, I know technology is always getting better all the time, so I'm sure they'll get to the point where they can do that. But there's been an issue, especially, I think we talked about this on the show before, but especially people with darker skin tones where it has a harder time distinguishing. And so I feel like that's of the many potential problems with this, that is definitely one of them that comes to mind.
Yeah. I don't know that I think this is a lot of hype. Like, I'm looking at this article and I think they may have taken the word facial recognition out of context. Like, looking at this, it seems like what this was designed for was just grabbing a bunch of mugshots out of a group photo. So like, it could take a picture of a crowd and immediately crop the face portion of a person out for identification. So it doesn't seem like there's an identification component to this, more that it's just the computer recognizes faces out of a crowd. Other pixelated stuff, right?
Okay.
And that seems to be more what's going on here. I haven't done too much digging on it, but that's kind of that's more the sense that I get here, is that it's like it's taking surveillance that we're already doing and just making it easier for the surveiller to get useful information out of it than having to, do the whole, like the movie thing where it's like, zoom in and clarify on this, particular, like the computer's doing a little bit of that, where it's kind of like going, oh, we think this is a face. And then it pulls that face out of the crowd and like, maybe identifies 20 faces that were possibly in the crowd that you can look through and easily see if your terrorist that you're searching for is on that, in that group.
Yeah, one of the things that the article brings up is that there are no federal privacy laws when it comes to this sort of thing. There's a patchwork of local ordinances and that sort of thing. But do we need a privacy law to protect us from being surveilled this way, being surveilled and identified by law enforcement when we're just going about our daily business? Because, I get the need to protect us from the criminal element, but this idea that we're going to just basically scan every face potentially and match this up with an ID. I know that may not be what this is doing, but that might be where we're going.
Right.
That's a little bit, I don't know, scary. I don't know that I want that out in the wild.
I think that's the biggest concern about this particular technology here, is that it's a step in that direction. Like, that's just one component in the identifying people by their faces just automatically across the board. And it's a hard question, because I understand there are situations where something like that could be helpful in catching criminals, but at the same time, I don't want it to just be accepted in society that we just scan everyone's face and they're out in public and that's just what happens.
Right. Right. I agree.
I think an easy way to take care of this is from a legal angle too. Just say this is not admissible in court.
Right.
That's a good point.
Because, because then you don't eliminate the use of a technology like this, where it's just like, we've got cameras there for a reason, and using that camera to identify, post case, going back and seeing who might have been a suspect, and then using that to identify the suspect. That's not necessarily, I don't think anybody would have a problem with that, honestly.
Right.
But that if you just say like, we can't ever take a picture of a person's face, then, you can't have a public camera. But just saying this kind of document is not admissible in court, like the facial recognition portion of it, especially, I think that eliminates a lot of it. And there's lots of good reason, Jack, like you were saying, the fact that it can't accurately identify certain ethnic groups from each other, because it can't distinguish the pixel colors from different groups. That's a great reason just by default that it's going to get it wrong with a reasonable percentage. Even as it gets better, it's still going to have certain problems and certain biases. That's a great reason to just toss it out and say this is not legally admissible for research. And I think you're going to have if you do that, it limits the usability of this kind of tech.
Right.
I mean, you can't just haul everyone in and take their fingerprints, and say, we need everyone's fingerprints here, and just have them on file so that in case someone commits there's a crime committed, we can compare your fingerprints to the criminals. And as long as you don't commit any crimes, you get nothing to worry about, right? No. So, yeah, I mean, but we can have fingerprint technology. We can have, if we have a reasonable, probable cause that you might be a suspect, then we can, get a court order or whatever, and then take those steps and use these different, tools, but not a broad net. And that's an established legal principle. So you're right that it's possible that the courts could look at this now and say, this is unconstitutional because it's too broad of a net. So I'd be surprised if they tried to use this technology directly in a criminal case, maybe as a way to get started or to track things down. But I would be surprised if you ever saw this in a courtroom as evidence, say. All right. So moving on, here's another interesting one. Vinyl overtakes CD sales for the first time since 1987. I love these headlines because it's a little deceptive. It's not like CDs have been selling like hotcakes for any time recently.
Right.
Do you know anyone who buys CDs? I was
going to say this headline attributable to thanks Spotify.
Right.
Yeah. It's a funny stat. And I think it's funny just for the fact that vinyl is outselling CDs, but it's totally unsurprising really because the people who want to collect physical music are going to buy vinyl because it's just a lot more fun. You get the big gatefold artwork. They actually last longer than CDs. It's kind of like the whole experience, whereas CDs have always been kind of disposable. And so one CD was sold this year and two records are sold this year, then you're outselling.
Right. I mean, they are selling, what they say, $1.2 billion in vinyl this past year. So, I mean, it's not nothing. And it's interesting that there's this growth in the amount of vinyl records people want to buy. Nostalgia? I mean, is this like, people wearing parachute pants from the 80s?
I think it's nostalgia, and I think it's partially it's a hip fad right now. I was in Walmart the other day and they don't have a CD section anymore, but they have a vinyl section, which I thought was funny. Like, I never thought that you'd go back to getting vinyl. And then I've even noticed, and this is more underground still, a lot of Bandcamp bands will do this, but cassettes are making a comeback too, just for the nostalgia factor, even though it's objectively not a very good format.
No,
I was gonna say that's like a vinyl. At least you have the argument that you're an audiophile, right? Like this is the best quality sound you're gonna get from music. But I don't know, with a tape, it just doesn't sound like that.
See, I'm old enough that I'm like, when CDs came out, I'm like, I'm getting rid of all these records and cassettes. I'm going CD. That's the future. So it's funny to see everyone going back. I'm waiting for 8-tracks to make their comeback. That will be.
Yeah.
Let me know when they start putting albums out on the Edison cylinder again.
There we go. Etched wax cylinders.
Yes.
But
I like this when you scroll down on this. When you scroll down on this page, you actually get the pie chart that shows streaming, which is like Pac-Man eating everything else. You know?
Streaming is 84% of all music sales, right? Music revenue out there, which it makes sense because with streaming, you have everything. You just get it all. And I want to know the 3% that are buying digital downloads. Like, nope, I'm not going to subscribe. They're the holdouts. Is that you not subscribing?
So digital downloads, I buy them for like more independent bands. Like I just mentioned, Bandcamp. Like, so if you want to support an artist, like a local artist or a smaller unsigned artist, still a good idea to buy the music directly.
I see. Oh yeah, that's true. That sort of stuff. I get that. What is sync? It lists sync as one of the categories, and it doesn't explain that. I'm not sure what that means. So it's sync, physical, digital downloads, and streaming. So I'd have to probably dig into the RIAA report to figure out what that is. But the funny thing is Taylor Swift's vinyl has sold more than Harry Styles and the Beatles combined. Oh
my gosh. Oh my gosh. That's kind of terrifying, actually.
Yeah, it is. It is a little terrifying. All right. So speaking of terrifying, it's the next article, this headline we want to talk about. It sure seems like Amazon is making a new web browser. Now, this is based on a survey that Amazon sent out to a number of customers that asked questions about if Amazon were to develop a new web browser for desktops or laptops, what sort of features would you be interested in, that sort of thing? And I'm kind of curious. The article suggests that the reason that Amazon may want a new web browser is because Google, with its Chrome browser, which is the #1 browser in the world, is going to be shutting off access to block third-party cookies, which is the #1 way that companies track you across websites and track your behaviors. And so Amazon's browser would presumably would allow that sort of thing, and also cross-reference with all the information they know about you from your shopping habits at Amazon. So, and that would be a huge treasure trove of data that they could then sell to third parties. But what would be the case for consumers? What possible reason would any of us have to use an Amazon browser? What do y'all think?
Unless they start including it as the default on like their Kindle Fire tablets, I really don't see a use case for it. I mean, I'm sure if this does come to fruition, they'll do something like you can get exclusive coupons and if you look at items on other websites, it'll show you the prices on Amazon, or I'm sure they'll have like features for it, but I don't know why you'd ever use an Amazon browser.
Yeah. And they said it's desktop laptop. So even if it's on Fire, I mean, they're trying to presumably get Macs and Windows. Probably not Linux, I'm guessing.
I don't know if you could get a Linux user to use this kind of thing.
Exactly. That's what I was thinking.
We're all like writing our own Chromiums, you know?
I don't see. Yeah. I mean, they would have to really sell it as some sort of consumer benefit to get people to use it, because out of the gate, it would be, I mean, I already do feel awkward buying as much as I do from Amazon. I don't like going to them for as much as I do. And I try to go other places when I can. They're just so big. It's sometimes hard to avoid them. I don't want my browser to be Amazon's browser. Yeah.
Amazon is interesting because I feel like their main like technology based hit that's actually gone well for them in the long run has been the Kindles and the tablets to a smaller extent, but that's mainly just because they're so cheap. Like I think we had a story a couple months ago about how Alexa is a loss leader and it's losing them money.
Yes.
Do you remember the Fire phone that came out in 2014?
One of those.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, that was a total bomb, and it was the same kind of thing.
Awful.
Where, it's like you have all these exclusive Amazon features, and if you take a picture of something, it will show you where you can buy it on Amazon, and it flopped horribly.
Yeah.
Right.
It was so limited because it was their app environment, so you couldn't really do much of anything, honestly. And they didn't have a robust app environment at the time. They still really don't, and it kind of it was the worst of all possible combinations as far as the phone goes.
Right. Yeah, I feel like Amazon is constantly trying to get outside its box. Like it wants to be more than the online retailer. And it's succeeded in some areas, like buying Whole Foods and doing, TV and movie things. And that sort of stuff seems to be going well for them. But, especially when it comes to hardware or more general like software, like a browser, I just don't see that that's a natural fit for them.
Well, and a browser is one of those things, like if you're learning to code, it's one of those things that you can learn as a basic thing. It's like how to code a web browser. So I'm not really sure what you would be adding to the browser ecosystem by doing this kind of thing as Amazon.
Right. And there's no real reason for anyone to go there, because like I use Safari for a lot of things because I'm on a Mac and it comes with it. And there are Apple features that are integrated with it. But I also use Brave and I use Firefox for various things. Firefox, because StreamYard works best in Firefox on a Mac. But they have reasons to exist on my system. I have no reason for Amazon to exist on my system, but as a browser.
They're going to start making it when you buy an item, when you hit buy now, it's going to also download that to your system and set it as the default browser. And they're just going to get people who don't know anything about browsers to start using it and not realize it.
Yes. Yeah.
That's the strategy.
Oh my
gosh.
Why
Internet Explorer is still around? I mean, like, because it was just default installed and nobody knows how to get rid of it.
Right,
Yep.
right. And that's Explorer, not Edge. It's probably still there, Explorer. So, yeah. Well, I mean, it's sort of speculation. Who knows if they'll actually do it? That's the other thing to say with these things. These companies send out surveys for all kinds of things all the time that never actually happen. There's someone whose job it is to survey things and look forward at things. And so it's possible that they have no real plans, but I just thought it was an interesting idea that Amazon would have a web browser.
I'd be interested to see the survey results and see like how many people return. I'd like more privacy in my browsers. That's like, okay, well, that's not happening for us. Never mind.
Yeah, right. All right. So those are our headlines. Let's move on to our picks of the week. And Thomas, why don't you go first with your pick this week?
Alrighty, so I am a D&D tabletop nerd. With the D&D movie having coming out, I hope many of you are interested as well. And my pick of this week is a way for you to make your own D&D mini online. And I think I've talked about Hero Forge before, which is another one. So if you're interested, go check out Hero Forge. It's really cool too. This one is called Titancraft, and it is a combination of a lot of my nerdy interests. So as a 3D printer, I can go to Titancraft. I can make a minifig for free. So you can get all the way through the process without paying a dime and download the STL file to use and print your own minifigs. And you can do many of them. So I'm actually currently about to start DMing, and I'm going to go and create a bunch of NPC minifigs that I can use. Now, the other side of this is that it's really cool that they can offer some parts of it for free because they have premium sections that you can buy different items for your minifig. So like you could buy a pack of pirate items. So if you wanted to add, a pirate coat and a pirate hat and a sword, because you're doing a nautical theme D&D character, you just purchase that pack. So there's a lot of stuff that's available by default. It's really cool. You can get through making a decent looking character without buying anything. But then if there's some particular thing you want, you buy a pack or just one particular item if you're going to do just a one-off minifig that needs that one thing that really completes it. And I'm actually contemplating purchasing the nautical theme because that's the theme of my campaign. It's kind of got a nautical theme to it. So I'm probably going to purchase that so that I can make my NPCs a little more accurate to where we're going. But really, really great website. You just click through, you get a base model, and you can edit the face, you can edit the hair, the helmet, the armor, you can pose the hands and the arms. You can get a heroic pose or make it stand like it's singing. Really, really a lot of fun. Even if you don't end up buying any of the minis or anything, it's a lot of fun to just click through and play with it.
Very nice. I recently used Hero Forge to make a Jimmy Aiken figure.
Yes.
Which was surprisingly easy to do, and because he's a very distinctive looking guy, and sent it to him as a little gift I was going to send him. So on a future Mysterious World feedback episode, you'll all get to see that. But nice. Yeah, these can be fun. It's not inexpensive, the Hero Forge one. So if you've got a 3D printer, being able to just print it yourself That's a great idea. And you'd end up having to paint it yourself. I would, I would presume, that sort of thing. So the ones that make it for you, they'll also paint it as you wish. But cool. That's really cool. I like that. And it can be free if you have a 3D printer already. Excellent. So Jack, what's your pick?
My pick, it's actually something that you mentioned earlier, Thomas, about making sure that you have cables around the house. My pick is Anchor USB-C cables specifically, and Anchor cables more generally. If you have an iPhone or if you just need different kinds of USB cables, their products are all really high quality. They last a long time. They're rated for like the right charging speeds for newer devices. Like you can get some that are 60 watt, or if you have 140 watt charging. They're more pricey than the typical cheap cables you're just going to grab at Walmart. So it's usually $12 for 2 cables, but you're going to get a good quality cable that's going to last, and it's an actual certified cable. And that's important with a lot of devices. A lot of those cables you pick up that's like a 10 pack for $5. They're not certified, and they may or may not work, and they could potentially cause damage to your devices because they're not properly vetted and certified. So yeah, Anchor products in general are great. Their USB-C cables are high quality. Definitely recommend them.
Yeah, that's the thing about USB-C cables specifically, is how confusing it can be, because there are different kinds of USB-C. Some are rated for power, some are just data, and it's just a mess. You really can't go wrong with the Anchor brand. I've always thought highly of them. I went to the link that you put in our document, and it says, "Oh, you last purchased this on November 29th." So these are the ones I get to. Yeah, awesome.
I had one as well. That's the same thing for me. Previous purchase.
So my pick this week is a charging station, and this is a generic one, and there are others out there that might work for you. But this is a 6-device charging station that comes with the short cables, like we mentioned. It comes with the Lightning or the mini micro USB. I think it's micro USB for Kindle, or Lightning for Apple devices. And it's very simple. It's got one power cord that comes into the back, and then you plug these little short 6-inch cables in to the side, and they're the slots, and you just stack your devices in the slots. And I have a little table that's in our living room that is the charging table, and that all the devices go there. That's where we charge things. We've had this in different places in the house, and this seems to be a little bit better. Although one of my constant chores is to untangle cables. I don't know what it is. Like, it is like the Gordian knot of cables sometimes. And it's just like, it's sort of therapeutic. I'm just unwinding things and unplugging things and straightening them out. But this is a pretty nice solution. There are lots of different ones out there, but having a place where everyone's devices can go at night, that's one of our rules, is no devices in bed. No devices in your, overnight in your room. So all the devices go here, they charge, and they can take their Kindle and read their book in bed, but like their phones or tablets, that sort of stuff. So that's, we have, and then we know where things are supposed to be when they're charging. So when they're looking for their device.
My recommendation here is, if you're looking at these things, make sure they don't have lights on them in places where they're going to bother you, because we have one in our room that has this incredibly bright LED on the front of it and another one on the back of it. And it's like, I can't escape the LEDs. So I have to put electrical tape over it just to make sure that I'm not going to be woken up by it.
Yeah, the blue LEDs that burn through your retinas in the dark.
Yeah.
My wife is very light sensitive, so anything that goes into our room has to have like that covered. I found that there was these labels. I'll make it a pick of the week in the future. This company that sells these tiny little stickers of various sizes and shapes that are designed to go over LEDs. Ooh. and they're opaque enough, that's the word I'm looking for, that they won't let the light through. So, and it's all these different shapes and stuff. So that's nice. Pretty handy. Yeah. So yeah, that's a good point. The bright LEDs. Like, why would you, like, a charging thing that's supposed to go on your bedstand, like your nightstand?
Yeah.
All right. So
testing was not done on this object.
Yeah, not in someone's home, that's for sure. So, all right. So that's it from us. We'd love to hear what you thought of any part of our discussion, and you can do that by commenting on the show at sqpn.com/technology, the StarQuest Facebook page at facebook.com/StarQuestMedia. Send an email to technology@sqpn.com, or visit the StarQuest Discord community at sqpn.com/Discord. You can find links from our discussion and picks of the week on our show notes at starquest.fm/TEC208. Until next time, Jack Baruzzini, sorry. Thank you for joining me and sharing the secrets of technology.
Thanks, Dom.
Thomas Sanjurjo, thank you as well.
It's been great.
Where's Pat Scott when it's easy to say your name? I mean, it's not like I've got an easy name. And once again, I'm Dom Bettinelli. Thank you for listening to The Secrets of Technology on StarQuest.